The movie begins in a store where Jimmy works as a salesman. He is a handsome young man who enjoys flirting with attractive women and has a knack for selling products. Jimmy often dances and sings to persuade the ladies to make purchases, and his charm doesn't go unnoticed. All the women, including the wife of his boss, admire his style. She develops a strong attraction to Jimmy, and they begin a secret affair in the storage room. However, one day, her husband catches them together, leading to a confrontation where he punches Jimmy in the nose, causing it to bleed. Despite the incident, Jimmy remains unfazed and immediately goes outside to flirt with another girl. This behavior leads to him being fired from his job. Feeling disappointed, Jimmy returns home to his family's dinner, where his brother Josh mocks him. Jimmy, however, reveals his plan to become a pharmaceutical salesperson to earn more money, despite his family's advice against it. He soon secures an interview with a company called Fair, which is launching new medical pills. After getting selected, Jimmy undergoes a 6-week training program with other recruits. On his first day at work, Jimmy, known for his charm, flirts with several girls and receives selling tips from his new friend Bruce. They head to a hospital to sell medicine, but initially, the doctors show no interest. Unperturbed, they return the next day, waiting to meet with the doctors. Jimmy mistakenly thinks one of them is a woman named Lisa, but Bruce corrects him. Eventually, Jimmy's charm grabs her attention. They also observe another salesperson, Trey, who effortlessly sells his medications at the hospital, inspiring Jimmy with his success. Bruce motivates Jimmy to aim for a promotion by increasing his sales. Jimmy impresses a receptionist and cleverly takes some of Trey's medication samples, which leads to the receptionist developing feelings for him. He uses this strategy for several days, gradually making progress with his product, although he doesn't quite meet his sales targets. One evening at a bar, Jimmy and Bruce observe Trey selling drugs to Dr. Knight, who is a regular buyer. Jimmy decides to bribe Dr. Knight with $1,000, presenting it as a gift from his company, to convince him to help promote their medicines in the hospital. Dr. Knight agrees, asking if Jimmy is bribing him, but Jimmy reassures him that it's simply a special preceptorship for him to shadow the doctor. This arrangement allows Jimmy to be introduced as a trainee and to interact with patients. During this time, Jimmy meets Maggie, a patient with Parkinson's disease, and they discuss her medication options. Jimmy promotes his company's product, highlighting its fewer side effects, which impresses Maggie despite an awkward moment when he makes a mistaken diagnosis. Later, as Jimmy is arranging medicines in his car, Maggie confronts him after realizing he's not really a trainee and punches him for staring at her chest. Jimmy apologizes and explains the situation, eventually managing to get Maggie's phone number through the receptionist. Meanwhile, Jimmy's brother Josh seeks refuge at Jimmy's house after a breakup, caused by his addiction to online pornography. Jimmy and Maggie later meet for coffee, where Jimmy apologizes again and compliments her, leading to a casual relationship that helps Maggie cope with the pain from her illness. Though Jimmy begins to develop feelings for Maggie, he respects her desire to keep the relationship non-committal due to her health. Jimmy continues selling medicine at the hospital while dealing with his growing emotions for Maggie. One day, while Jimmy is throwing Trey's medication in the trash, Trey catches him and punches him in response. Jimmy attempted to hit Trey, but his hands hurt too much. Trey warned Jimmy to stay away from Maggie. A beggar then appeared and took the discarded medication. Jimmy went to the hospital to try to put the medication back, but the receptionists, apparently bribed by Trey, stopped him. Frustrated, Jimmy decided to visit Maggie and brought some snacks with him. Maggie noticed that Jimmy had developed feelings for her, so she told him their relationship wouldn't work. She explained that she had been in a relationship before, but it ended badly after she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. When Jimmy asked if her ex-boyfriend was Trey, she confirmed it, but clarified that she no longer had feelings for him. The next day, Maggie struggled to open a snack container because her hands were shaking too much. Afterward, Jimmy went to work with Bruce and Josh, excited about the company's upcoming launch of a new drug called Viagra, which is used for prolonged sexual performance. Jimmy was thrilled with the new product. At a party, Jimmy encountered Dr. Knight, who revealed that Maggie's condition was very serious. Concerned, Jimmy called Maggie to express his feelings for her, but she hung up the phone. Determined to see her, Jimmy went to meet Maggie, who was taking some elderly people to Canada for treatment. When he arrived, he told her he wanted to talk, but she said she wouldn't be back until late at night and then left. That night, Jimmy went to Maggie's house and waited for her all night. When she returned home in the morning and found Jimmy still there, she was upset. Despite having feelings for him, Maggie regretted it because of her illness. Meanwhile, Jimmy and Bruce successfully launched their new drug, Viagra. The product quickly became a huge success, even gaining attention in the news. Doctors who had previously refused to buy their medications started purchasing them voluntarily. As a result, the company where Jimmy worked gained fame, and Jimmy became wealthy. As Jimmy's relationship with Maggie deepened, Maggie continued to struggle with her feelings of regret about being involved with him. One night, after spending the evening together, Jimmy confessed that he truly loved her, something he had never told anyone before. Maggie was unsure how to respond. When Jimmy returned home, he found his brother in a compromising situation. Meanwhile, Maggie's condition was worsening day by day, and Jimmy, realizing the seriousness of it, began consulting with Dr. Knight to explore treatment options for her. Jimmy expressed his love for Maggie and his desire to help her, but Maggie lashed out at him, accusing him of being a bad person. Determined to show her that she could still find happiness, Jimmy took Maggie to a conference for people with Parkinson's disease. There, Maggie met others who were living with the disorder, many of whom were in worse conditions than she was, but still led joyful and fulfilling lives. This experience made her realize that she too could have a happy life. She apologized to Jimmy and agreed to undergo treatment to alleviate her symptoms. She also finally admitted that she loved him, saying, "I love you. I really do love you." From that day forward, Jimmy dedicated himself to taking Maggie to various hospitals and specialists in different countries, seeking treatments to improve her condition. As time passed, Maggie continued to receive care, and Jimmy stopped working, focusing all his attention on her. However, this took a toll on his finances. His credit card was declined, his bank balance dwindled, and he became increasingly desperate to fix the situation. He also neglected his job and the possibility of a promotion, which made Maggie feel guilty. Believing that she was holding Jimmy back, Maggie decided to leave him so he could focus on his career and achieve a better life. She asked him to leave her house. Days passed, and both Jimmy and Maggie were miserable, missing each other deeply and crying often. Jimmy tried to call her, but she didn't answer. Josh attempted to comfort Jimmy, but it didn't help. Dr. Knight invited Jimmy to a party, and although Jimmy initially refused, Josh convinced him to go. At the party, Jimmy received a message that he had been promoted to a position in Chicago. Surprised, he exclaimed, "Chicago! I got it! Congratulations! That is unbelievable!" A few days later, Jimmy met Maggie in a restaurant. They sat in silence, unable to find the right words to say, but exchanged warm smiles. As Maggie attempted to leave, Bruce arrived and informed Jimmy about his new job in Chicago. Maggie congratulated Jimmy and then quietly left. As Jimmy prepared to move to Chicago, he came across an old video camera that they had used to record their happy moments together. Overcome with memories, he decided to visit Maggie's house, only to discover that she was planning to leave for Canada by bus. Determined not to lose her, Jimmy chased after the bus and managed to stop it. Maggie initially resisted, saying she didn't want to talk, but Jimmy pleaded for just 5 minutes. He poured out his heart, confessing his love for her and expressing how much he needed her. Though Maggie tried to suppress her feelings, she eventually gave in. They embraced in the middle of the road, deciding that they wanted to live their lives together. Maggie was no longer worried about her illness, and Jimmy made the decision to quit his job in Chicago, choosing instead to stay with Maggie. In reflecting on his decision, Jimmy realized that sometimes you meet countless people who don't make a lasting impact, but then you meet one person who changes your life forever.